You've stumbled upon something truly profound, a secret veiled for millennia, and your presence here is no mere accident. There exists a technique, an ancient wisdom, so remarkably potent that when precisely applied, it triggers an instantaneous awakening within your very soul, compelling it to recall its primordial essence, who you truly are. This is an abstract philosophy. It's not an ethereal concept or a hollow ritual. This is an undeniable truth, an active force that fundamentally works. And precisely because of its transformative power, it has been deliberately shrouded in mystery and meticulously hidden from the collective consciousness for centuries. For those who seek to exert control over humanity, inherently grasp a fundamental truth. An individual who fully remembers their intrinsic nature, their divine origin, can no longer be coerced, manipulated, or subjugated. Such a being transcends the pervasive grip of fear, the burden of guilt, and the incessant craving for external validation or approval. They achieve a state of profound and unshakable freedom, becoming sovereign in their own existence. This emancipated state is undeniably the gravest threat to any system, any power structure, designed to maintain humanity in a perpetual state of confinement and ignorance. But a new dawn has arrived, marking the precise moment for this profound truth to be unveiled. In the unfolding minutes of this narration, you will not only grasp the intricate reasons why this particular technique was historically labeled as forbidden, but, more importantly, you will begin to feel its subtle yet undeniable stirrings deep within your being, signaling its imminent awakening. Prepare yourself and listen with every fiber of your awareness. Pay extremely close attention. Every word, every concept, every subtle nuance in this revelation is crucial. Do not, under any circumstances, skip any part, for if you miss even a single, seemingly minor detail of what I am about to illuminate, you risk wandering through an entire lifetime never truly remembering the magnificent being you are, forever bound by the illusions of forgetfulness. Your journey of remembrance, your profound awakening, begins now. What has been silently hidden and patiently waiting within the deepest chambers of your being shall finally be unveiled, when you consciously silence the mind's relentless noise and willingly attune your awareness to the quiet, unwavering voice of your authentic, eternal self. As you embark on a deep dive into the study of ancient civilizations, an astonishing and almost inexplicable pattern begins to emerge across vast oceans, separating peoples who possessed no discernible means of exchanging knowledge, letters, or even travelers. A remarkable synchronicity in their understanding began to manifest. These disparate cultures, seemingly disconnected, started articulating strikingly similar concepts regarding the fundamental nature of the soul, the intricate workings of the universe, and the ultimate meaning and purpose of human existence. Consider the speed of airplanes, the convenience of simultaneous translators, or any modern infrastructure for global communication. Yet, in the sacred confines of distant temples, articulated through diverse languages and unique cultural expressions, they consistently echoed the very same profound warning, a timeless truth resonating across continents. Humanity has, in its earthly journey, forgotten who it truly is. This collective amnesia lies at the heart of much suffering and delusion. In the hallowed halls of ancient Egypt, the revered master Thoth spoke with profound insight about what he termed a vibrational fall. This was not depicted as a mere physical descent from a lofty height, but rather an intricate, energetic lowering of the soul's innate frequency. As it began its intricate journey into the physical body, he described it as if a pure, brilliant light, the very essence of divine consciousness, had become subtly yet profoundly veiled or obscured by a dense, almost impenetrable layer of cosmic amnesia, making it incredibly challenging to access its inherent brilliance. Thoth, with his unparalleled wisdom, did not perceive the physical body as an adversary or an impediment. Instead, he framed its existence as a magnificent and profound challenge and intricate puzzle for the soul to solve. He asserted that at the very moment of birth, the soul, in its innocent plunge into a world defined by physical forms and tangible sensations, simultaneously loses its conscious, immediate memory of its boundless, invisible origin. It becomes intertwined with the limitations and perceptions of the material realm. And the most poignant, perhaps even tragic, aspect of this process wasn't a complete and utter eradication of memory. Instead, it was the lingering, persistent, and often deeply unsettling feeling that something was missing from one's life. It was akin to a faint, melancholic echo in the depths of your being, a distant whisper whose origin you couldn't quite pinpoint or intellectually grasp, yet you instinctively knew, with an undeniable certainty, that it was profoundly present and vitally important. In the mystical traditions of ancient India, the revered rishis gave a name to this pervasive state of existential forgetting. They called it samsara, the cyclical state of illusion and forgetfulness that binds beings to the material plane. The rishis, enlightened sages of profound insight, taught a revolutionary concept. The soul, in its inherent perfection, does not actually need to learn anything new in the conventional sense. This is because, fundamentally, everything it requires is already contained within its divine blueprint. What is truly needed they emphatically asserted, is not acquisition, but rather remembrance. And for this sacred act of remembering, they revealed that the true path does not lead through external books, intellectual debates, or scholastic arguments. Instead, it guides one through profound inner practices, through the sanctifying power of silence, the focused journey of meditation, the transformative force of vibration, and, crucially, through the cultivation of a specific state of consciousness where the ego's tenacious grip gracefully loosens, allowing the soul's radiant and authentic essence to re-emerge into conscious awareness. Across the Hellenic world, in ancient Greece, the mystical practitioners of the Orphic traditions viewed the soul with a profound sense of its earthly confinement, often describing it as a prisoner of the body. However, it is vital to understand the nuanced perspective behind this description. They conveyed this not with an underlying pessimism or a nihilistic rejection of the vibrant tapestry of life. Quite the contrary. It was articulated as a powerful and urgent invitation to a profound awakening. The Orphics held a deep conviction that the physical body, in its material form, was inherently temporary and true and everlasting freedom, they believed, manifested not in escape, but when the soul, while still embodied, consciously recognized and fully embraced its own immortal, boundless nature. To facilitate this sacred remembrance, their intricate rituals incorporated soul-stirring chants, meticulous breathwork techniques, and the cultivation of altered states of perception, allowing individuals, even within the constraints of their earthly lives, to experience a direct, undeniable connection to their divine origin. These diverse ancient traditions, originating from seemingly disparate corners of the globe, did not merely copy one another's practices. Instead, they stood as distinct yet harmonious manifestations of the very same universal truth, a timeless principle that transcends all cultural boundaries and the linearity of time itself. It is an intrinsic truth that holds no singular ownership, is confined to no specific religion, and flies under no single flag. It is, in its purest form, an ancestral memory that has always resided, as an inherent knowing, deep within the pulsating heart of humanity. Yet, here lies a truly curious fact, one that begs further investigation. In none of these ancient locales was this ultimate, profound technique ever found readily available in an openly accessible manual or a publicly displayed scroll. There were no sacred texts detailing every single step of this transformative process, laid bare for anyone to simply pick up and read. This deliberate withholding was rooted in a deep understanding. They knew that such potent knowledge could not be casually delivered or frivolously handed to unprepared individuals without significant, even perilous, consequences. Thus, these profound teachings were meticulously transmitted orally, whispered with reverence from enlightened master to devoted disciple, in sacred silence, confined within the secure walls of temples and sanctuaries, far removed from the intrusive gaze of the general public. Anyone who genuinely sought to acquire this unparalleled wisdom had to demonstrate an unwavering commitment, undergoing rigorous preparation and embarking on a deeply personal quest. This arduous path ensured that only those truly ready would approach the sacred knowledge. The inherent danger resided not in the technique itself, which was pure and transformative, but in what could potentially unfold if it were to be wielded by someone not yet prepared to bravely confront and lovingly integrate their own ego. These ancient guardians, wise beyond measure, preserved this precious wisdom with the same vigilance and care as one would safeguard a sacred, eternal flame. Their deepest intention was never to control or hoard knowledge. Rather, it was to protect those who, in their current state of being, were not yet fully equipped to deal with the overwhelming intensity and profound shifts that this awakening would inevitably bring. Because truly remembering who you are is far from a comfortable or facile process. It fundamentally reshapes everything you once understood about yourself and your reality. It systematically strips away long-held emotional crutches, meticulously dismantles deeply ingrained limiting beliefs, and courageously shatters the very mental structures that, for so long, provided a false sense of safety and predictability. And even so, despite being fiercely protected and often obscured, this vital wisdom, this ancestral memory, never truly ceased to exist. It journeyed steadfastly across countless centuries, cleverly disguised as timeless myths, intricate symbols embedded in ancient art, and profound stories whispered through generations steles that only a select few truly possessed the inner key to interpret. Its essence is subtly woven into Egyptian hieroglyphs, vibrantly present in Vedic scriptures, dramatically enacted in Greek theater, and deeply embedded within the rich tapestry of shamanic tales from indigenous cultures worldwide. Even today, in our seemingly modern and often chaotic world, this sacred knowledge remains vibrantly alive within the hearts and minds of those who possess the rare ability to listen not merely with their physical ears, but with the profound intuition of their hearts. But now, a crucial and inescapable question arises. Echoing from the depths of time, what precisely did they do within the sacred confines of those temples? What intricate kind of ritual, what transformative practice actually transpired within those dark, silent, and often secret chambers, meticulously hidden from the prying eyes of the mundane world. How did an ordinary individual manage to pierce the formidable veil of illusion, shedding its layers to finally remember the essence of their true soul? What unfolded within those hallowed spaces was so immensely powerful, so profoundly transformative, that many who passed through its initiation were quite simply never, ever the same again. And that, dear seeker, is precisely what we are about to begin revealing right now, step by intricate step. The illusionary identity, which are not these ancient rituals, were never intended to impress an audience with grand spectacles or to merely reinforce blind religious beliefs. Their sole purpose was to facilitate experiences of irreversible transformation. When an individual, driven by a deep inner calling, crossed the silent, hallowed thresholds of an Egyptian temple, an Orphic sanctuary, or a Vedic school, they were not just participating in a ceremonial event. They were, in essence, preparing to die without physically dying. But let's be absolutely clear, this was not a literal, physical cessation of life. It was something infinitely more subtle and, to anyone still tightly ensnared by the ego's illusions, far more frightening. They called it symbolic death, a meticulously guided process where the individual was led into such a profound state of rest and deep surrender that their conscious awareness temporarily disconnected from the physical body for a period of several hours. It was a conscious journey beyond the ordinary waking state. In that profoundly altered state, the initiate was meticulously guided not by spoken words, but by subtle vibrations and powerful symbols, navigating through an invisible, ethereal world that the vast majority of people do not even know exists, let alone how to access. There, on that other side of the veil, there were no enlightened masters handing out ready-made answers, no scriptures offering simplistic solutions. There was only what the soul already knew, what it intrinsically held as truth, but had, in its earthly sojourn, forgotten. This truly was the secret they guarded at all costs. No one teaches you who you are. You remember, you have, in fact, always known. It is simply that the clamorous voice of the ego with its incessant fears, its relentless ambitions, its heavy burden of guilt, and its constant demands for external validation screams, so deafeningly loud in the external world that you can no longer perceive or hear what has been quietly, patiently speaking within you all along. During those profound hours of crossing the veil, the initiate received no new external knowledge, no unfamiliar doctrines. Quite the opposite. Everything they experienced was, fundamentally, a return. They instinctively recognized symbols and archetypes they had never consciously studied or encountered in this lifetime. They viscerally felt profound truths they had never read in any earthly book. It was akin to stirring awake from an immensely long, dense dream and, with a sudden, crystal-clear clarity, remembering the magnificent being they had always been, even before the intricate tapestry of this current life began to unfold. And therein lies the true, unparalleled power of this ancient ritual. It was not merely an intellectual experience, a satisfying of academic curiosity, or the accumulation of one more theory. It was unequivocally a shock of spiritual reality. Because once you have directly perceived what lies beyond the veil of illusion, once you have gazed upon the boundless truth of your being, you cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, pretend you haven't seen it. The illusion of separation, the paralyzing grip of fear, and the perceived need for external control all lose their profound meaning and power. You return to your physical body, yes, but you are never, ever the same again. However, this transformative process was not without its inherent challenges, for crossing the veil demands an immense and unwavering courage. Not everyone possessed the inner fortitude to accomplish it. Some, when confronted with the overwhelming vastness and raw power of who they truly are, were gripped by an intense and primal fear. The ego, perceiving its impending dethronement from the center of everything, fought back fiercely, attempting to resist this profound shift. In certain poignant cases, the initiate could not fully relinquish their need for control and consequently became trapped, suspended precariously between two worlds, unable to fully revert to the comforting illusion, yet simultaneously unprepared to fully embrace and live the unvarnished truth of the soul. Thoth, in his profound wisdom, spoke directly and unequivocally about this potential peril. He issued a stern warning. The greatest risk inherent in traversing this sacred path was doing so without sufficient inner preparation. For the ego, when abruptly confronted with the raw, undeniable truth, can desperately attempt to distort the experience, twisting its insights and revelations to feed an even more insidious form of spiritual vanity or self. That is why not every individual who underwent the crossing returned truly transformed. Some, tragically, came back confused, deeply frightened, or even fragmented, precisely because they were not ready to bravely let die that which they thought they were. And this, perhaps, is the most delicate and often misunderstood point of this ancient teaching. Many individuals, in their spiritual quests, seek out techniques with an underlying desire to become more powerful, more enlightened, or more special than others. But true initiation does not elevate you to a state of superior importance. On the contrary, it makes you profoundly more real. And the essence of being real necessitates shedding everything false. Every facade meticulously constructed to please others, every shield raised to protect yourself from perceived fear, or every pedestal climbed to feel superior. This is the very essence of the death that does not kill the symbolic demise of the character you have meticulously crafted, the gentle cessation of the role you have been so diligently playing for an extended period, perhaps even without conscious awareness. Yet, Thoth, in his boundless compassion, also declared that for those who navigated this profound process with unwavering sincerity and immense courage, what awaited them on the other side was not destruction, but a glorious rebirth. It was the dawn of a new, authentic life, where you are finally liberated from the burdensome reliance on the falsehoods the world has incessantly told you about yourself. You simply are in your purest form, simple, quietly confident, and profoundly whole, just as you always were, yet had momentarily forgotten. However, not everyone who completed the crossing was able to return to their daily lives in the same integrated manner. Some crossed the veil, experienced the truth, but found themselves unable to fully bring that profound vision back into the practicalities of their everyday existence. They became trapped in a peculiar kind of inner limbo, where they possessed the knowledge of truth but were incapable of fully living it. And that, precisely, is the danger Thoth so emphatically warned about. Remembering who you are is merely the beginning. The authentic, monumental challenge lies in living from that sacred place of remembrance, continuously integrating its wisdom into every waking moment. And if this profound crossing was indeed so perilous, so deeply transformative, and held such immense power, what specific measures did Thoth's disciples undertake to safeguard themselves from its inherent risks? What essential preparation did they undergo before embarking on that sacred, invisible journey? That, dear seeker, is exactly what we are about to begin revealing right now, delving into the very core of their ancient practices. The illusionary identity. Which you are not, it is unequivocally futile to embark on the profound journey of traversing the invisible veil if the very being attempting to walk through it is still heavily laden with the dense, oppressive weight of the false self. And what Thoth imparted to his initiates was direct, unflinching, and utterly devoid of He proclaimed that the very first, and often most formidable, barrier is not external to you. It resides, fundamentally, within, and it is not some external demon, nor a malevolent curse, nor any discernible external enemy. It is, rather, the insidious construct known as the illusionary identity. This illusionary identity is that pervasive, ceaseless inner monologue, that persistent voice that tirelessly reiterates, day in and day out, who you believe you are. Yet in truth, it is nothing more than an intricate bundle of inherited beliefs, deeply ingrained fears, and external expectations that were meticulously placed there, layer by subtle layer, since the very moment of your birth. This constructed identity is, in its essence, not who you truly are. It is a fabricated character, a specific role you unconsciously accepted and began to play, almost without noticing, merely to achieve a sense of belonging and to comfortably fit into the intricate social fabric of the world around you. From the earliest moments of your childhood, you were relentlessly bombarded with countless narratives, often subtly disguised as advice, about who you should be. You're too sensitive, you might have been told. You're not capable enough, or conversely, you absolutely must be strong, or you have to be the best at everything. And, with an almost imperceptible ease, you began to wear these external impositions as if they were intrinsically, authentically yours. Yet, not a single one of these defining labels or directives originated from the boundless wisdom of your soul. They emerged, instead, from the deeply rooted fears of other people, from the inherent limitations they themselves carried, and which they, unknowingly or knowingly, passed on to you as absolute truths. Thoth, with his unparalleled insight, termed this pervasive condition the invisible mental prison, not because you can physically see chains binding you, but precisely because you are so utterly accustomed to its confines that you don't even realize you are trapped. You genuinely believe these ideas, these limitations, are your own inherent truths, when in fact they are merely ingrained programs you accepted without question, without conscious examination. And it is precisely here that the true, liberating practice begins. There is no discernible benefit in seeking to ascend to higher, more expansive worlds while your inner world remains densely populated with illusions, distortions, and falsehoods. To begin the arduous yet liberating process of dismantling that formidable inner barrier, Thoth taught a practice that was deceptively simple, yet profoundly transformative. It is an exercise you can engage in right now, in this very moment, wherever you are. Simply observe a thought that spontaneously appears in your mind. Any thought, at all perhaps a lingering fear, a nagging doubt, a persistent worry, or even a fleeting judgment. Now, consciously pause, take a moment of deliberate stillness, and then, with genuine curiosity, Ask yourself, is this thought truly mine, or was it subtly placed within me by someone or something else? As you diligently practice this inquiry, you will astonishingly come to realize that the overwhelming majority of thoughts that seemingly control your daily existence were not, in fact, originated or created by your authentic self. They were, instead, inherited, meticulously copied, or unconsciously absorbed from your immediate environment, your family's conditioning, or the broader societal narratives. And the most astonishing, even unsettling, part of this revelation is that you didn't even consciously notice when this profound absorption occurred. But now that your awareness has been awakened to it, now that you clearly see it, you can no longer pretend that you don't. This deceptively simple act of observation, this mere questioning of your thoughts, creates a profound, liberating crack in the otherwise solid edifice of the false self. Because when you consciously choose to stop automatically believing every thought that arises in your mind, you begin to perceive that there exists a vast, luminous space between who you truly are and the fleeting thoughts you happen to have. And it is precisely within that expansive, luminous space that true freedom begins. But let this be a clear warning. This process of dismantling the false self is not comfortable. It will, at times, be profoundly unsettling. For the false self, with its deep-seated patterns, will fight fiercely for its survival. It will desperately attempt to convince you that releasing these long-held beliefs is inherently dangerous, that you will utterly lose your identity, feel adrift and profoundly lost, or become tragically vulnerable. And for a period, perhaps you will experience glimpses of these sensations. This process is akin to consciously removing a mask that you have meticulously worn, identified with, and embodied your entire life. At first, a bare, unmasked face will feel strange, unfamiliar, even exposed. But gradually, little by little, your authentic truth will begin to breathe again, exhaling the accumulated burdens of pretense. This, dear seeker, is the crucial first step of the forbidden technique. Before embarking on the quest for mystical experiences or higher dimensions, you must meticulously cleanse your inner ground. For there is absolutely no benefit in attempting to plant precious seeds of truth in a soil that is still densely packed with the weeds of illusion and falsehood. The ego, in its cunning, will invariably attempt to distort any profound revelation, twisting its meaning to serve its own self-serving interests. It will cunningly transform genuine freedom into inflated spiritual pride. It will twist authentic insight into mere vanity. It will morph sacred knowledge into a trivial competition of who knows more. That is precisely why Thoth's counsel was unequivocally clear. Cleanse first, see the false clearly, with unwavering discernment, and only then move forward on your path. And as you consciously begin to shed those fabricated characters, those adopted roles, something profoundly curious and liberating begins to unfold. The silences that once felt terrifying or awkward now become deeply comforting. Moments that were previously devoid of immediate answers transform into expansive spaces of profound peace and fertile ground for intuition. You no longer feel the desperate need to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself, because for the first time, you are authentically beginning to be who you truly are, liberated from the exhausting need to hide behind any masks. But what follows this initial, vital cleansing is not an empty void or a state of spiritual barrenness. Quite the contrary. It is precisely at that pivotal juncture, when the false begins to recede, that something infinitely deeper, something that has lain dormant, almost asleep, since the very moment of your birth, begins its slow, magnificent emergence. This is a precious, intrinsic part of you that has never, ever forgotten who you truly are, a part that has always been silently observing, patiently waiting, for you to finally turn your gaze inward and acknowledge its quiet, eternal presence. And it is precisely this profound, authentic part of your being that we are about to begin revealing right now, opening the door to its silent wisdom. The single eye, perceiving without filters. There is an intrinsic sound within the deepest core of your being, a resonance that cannot be articulated by spoken words, only profoundly felt. When this most authentic, truest part of you begins its gradual emergence into your conscious awareness, a fundamental and irreversible shift occurs in how you perceive the entire world around you. It is as if a dense, obscuring veil is gently lifted from your eyes, revealing a reality far more vibrant and nuanced than you ever imagined. But the most remarkable and often perplexing aspect is that it's not precisely your physical eyes that are doing the seeing. Thoth, in his profound ancient wisdom, referred to this unique mode of perception as the single eye. This single eye was neither merely the faculty of physical sight, nor the cold, logical reasoning of the intellect, nor even the subjective landscape of emotion. It transcended all these. It was an unparalleled form of awareness that sees without needing to physically look, that knows without needing to logically think. It was a direct, raw, and utterly silent perception, yet simultaneously more profoundly real and undeniable than any collection of words could ever hope to describe. This intrinsic capacity for pure perception has always resided within you, a constant presence. However, it was, For a long time, muffled and obscured by the ceaseless mental noise, by the pervasive opinions of other people, and by the limiting beliefs you were diligently taught to accept as absolute truths. From your earliest childhood, you were systematically instructed that in order to comprehend the complexities of life, you had to incessantly analyze, constantly compare, meticulously calculate, and definitively judge. Yet, the profound and liberating truth is not unveiled through the laborious process of comparison. It is, instead, unveiled through the sheer power of presence. And the single eye, in its pure function, does not engage in comparison whatsoever. It simply sees. To see in the spiritual sense is not to direct your gaze outward in an analytical manner. It is, rather, to perceive without any filters, to experientially feel reality in its raw, unfiltered state, before your mind intervenes and distorts it by attempting to categorize or explain. The analytical mind, in its inherent nature, relentlessly seeks to name things, to construct elaborate stories around experiences, to rigidly divide the world into dichotomies of right and wrong, beautiful and ugly, good and bad. But the single eye is utterly devoid of such hurried classifications. It simply witnesses, it perceives things precisely as they are, stripped bare of any imposed labels or conceptual frameworks, and because of this profound ability, it directly accesses a dimension of reality that the vast majority of people have tragically lost, a dimension where everything is already inherently whole, already perfectly complete, needing nothing more to be what it is. Now, to begin experiencing this profound shift in perception, you don't require years of rigorous study or long, arduous spiritual retreats. What Thoth taught was remarkably simple. All it takes is a conscious, intentional moment of true silence. Not the kind of silence where you're anxiously waiting for something mystical or extraordinary to happen, but precisely the kind where you are not waiting for anything at all. It is a pure, effortless, and utterly unbounded space within your being. Let's engage in this practice together, right now. Gently close your eyes for 10 seconds. Now, take a deep, conscious breath, allowing it to fill your lungs completely, and then release slowly. During these moments, do not actively try to feel anything specific or extraordinary. Do not anticipate any magical answers or sudden epiphanies. Simply be in that silence, fully and completely present to the experience of being. Done. You may now gently open your eyes. Perhaps you felt a subtle shift, something different, or perhaps you didn't consciously notice anything at all. But irrespective of your immediate perception, something profoundly important has indeed occurred. Even if your logical mind did not register it, for the first time in a very long while, you consciously created a sacred space for pure perception to manifest. And even if that space lasted for just a fleeting few seconds, that deliberate act has already initiated the subtle process of weakening the mental noise that distracts you every single day. That, precisely, is how the single eye gradually awakens. Not through complex intellectual explanations, but through the consistent practice of conscious silence. Not through elaborate theories, but through unwavering presence. And the more consistently you engage in this practice, the more profoundly you will come to realize that life possesses an entirely different, deeper layer of reality. One that exists far beneath what your physical eyes typically reveal. This is a layer where everything vibrates with an intrinsic, silent unity, a harmonious interconnectedness that transcends individual forms. But pay close attention. This direct perception, while incredibly powerful, is only the beginning of your journey. It unequivocally shows you that something vastly more expansive exists beyond the confines of your mind and emotions. But it is still not the absolute deepest, most fundamental frequency of your soul. Because, as much as you can perceive reality without filters, something even more profound, more intrinsically you, is still waiting to be discovered. Something that defines who you truly are, far beyond what you feel, see, or even think. And this unique vibration, which Thoth emphatically stated was the true sound of the soul, is something almost no one in modern times has ever consciously accessed or fully understood. It cannot be adequately explained with mere words or grasped by the limited framework of logic. It can only be profoundly felt when every other external and internal noise completely falls silent, creating a pristine void. And from that sacred silence, something even deeper, more intrinsic to your essence, begins its majestic emergence. Because perceiving the world without filters, while a monumental leap, is still just a preliminary step. The invisible name, the true sound of your soul, Thoth, with his boundless ancient wisdom, revealed that there is something even more intimately connected, more fundamentally essential, more uniquely and inherently yours than any perception you might have or any thought you might entertain. It is the singular, unique vibration of your soul. This is a profound, resonant sound that has never been audibly spoken aloud by any earthly voice. Yet it has perpetually echoed within the deepest chambers of your being since the very beginning of your existence. The ancient sages, in their reverence, refer to this as the invisible name. This is not a name in the conventional sense, like John Mary, or any word linguistically invented by humans to categorize or label. It is, rather, a pure frequency, a specific vibrational state that, when consciously touched and resonantly engaged with, instantly causes everything within you, every cell, every atom, every particle, to profoundly recognize and resonate with who you have always eternally been. This invisible name cannot be taught through external instruction. No one can simply tell you what it is, because it is not a piece of information to be intellectually consumed. It is instead a silent sound. It is a sacred call that does not enter through your physical ears, but rather vibrates and resonates directly within the core of your spiritual heart. In the profound Hermetic tradition, Thoth taught that this ultimate name was not discovered through the laborious act of reading countless books, nor by memorizing complex formulas, nor by merely participating in external, formalized rituals. Instead, it was accessed exclusively through deep vibrational resonance. What does this profound concept truly imply? It means that when you align internally, when the clamor of your mind completely quiets and the sacred space of your heart authentically opens, this unique, soulful vibration begins to echo spontaneously, arising from your very essence. It has, in truth, always been there, an eternal presence. However, the relentless noise of the analytical mind, coupled with the myriad masks and identities donned by the ego, persistently drowned out its subtle yet profound sound. And it is remarkably insightful how, even without consciously knowing this ancient wisdom, you have already, at certain extraordinary moments in your life, experienced the subtle resonance of this very vibration. Do you recall those rare, exquisite moments when, inexplicably, everything in your life simply seemed to fall into perfect alignment? When you experienced a profound sense of peace that originated from no discernible external reason or circumstance, or that potent, undeniable intuition that emerged from seemingly nowhere, and you simply knew, with an absolute inner certainty, precisely what to do, without any lingering doubts or consuming anxiety. These, dear seeker, were not mere coincidences. These were the unmistakable echoes of your invisible name, vibrating silently yet powerfully within the deepest recesses of your being. It was as if, for a brief, sacred moment, the incessant noise of the mind gracefully faded, allowing this profound, silent frequency to be clearly heard in the vast depths of your awakened awareness. But here lies a crucial and often overlooked revelation. This intrinsic vibration of your soul does not, and cannot, need words. Any attempt to confine it within linguistic concepts or intellectual frameworks ultimately limits and diminishes what it truly is. It cannot be adequately described by human language. It can only be profoundly felt. And paradoxically, the more you attempt to intellectualize it, to mentally grasp it, the less you will truly feel it, because its essence does not belong to the domain of the analytical mind. It belongs, unequivocally, to your deepest essence, your true self. Thoth, in his succinct yet profound wisdom, declared, "This vibration is your true center. It is the pivotal point where you cease to be merely a fleeting collection of thoughts and transient emotions, and instantly become pure existence, not a constructed character, not a temporary role you play, not a convoluted story you tell yourself, but simply you, bare, silent, and profoundly whole, without any inherent need to prove anything to anyone, without any relentless striving to achieve anything, simply being." And as this sacred vibration begins to clarify within your being, becoming more distinct and resonant, something incredibly powerful unfolds. You feel, deep within your chest, a silent, unshakable certainty. This is not an inflated sense of arrogance or a superficial spiritual pride. Rather, it is a profound and unyielding peace, an inner stillness that remains utterly independent of external circumstances or the fluctuating tides of the world. It is akin to an inner declaration, echoing through your entire being. I know precisely who I am, and I do not require the external world to confirm or validate this truth for me. But here arises a subtle yet crucial detail that many individuals, in their spiritual pursuits, tend to inadvertently ignore. When this inner, authentic light begins its radiant shine, it does not exclusively illuminate what is perceived as beautiful, harmonious, or desirable. It illuminates everything, every hidden crevice, every shadowed corner, including precisely what has been meticulously hiding beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. This includes old, lingering wounds, deep-seated, persistent fears, and even those fragmented parts of yourself that you have desperately attempted to bury and forget for countless years. For true, unadulterated light, in its very nature, does not choose or discriminate what to reveal. It relentlessly exposes everything that stands, even subtly, in the way of your ultimate freedom and wholeness. And it is precisely at this juncture that many individuals become deeply frightened. Because when this profound frequency of your true self awakens, whatever was previously hidden and obscured now inevitably rises to the surface, revealed starkly under its illuminating light. And this emergence is not always a pleasant or aesthetically pleasing sight. When you truly remember who you are, it means not only recalling your inherent light, your pure and divine essence, but it also necessitates bravely facing and embracing everything you consciously or unconsciously constructed as a means to survive in this often challenging world. This includes all the intricate layers, all the emotional armor, all the protective facades you meticulously created to shield yourself from perceived pain, from the sting of rejection, and from the pervasive grip of fear. Thoth, in his deep understanding of the human condition, called this arduous yet necessary process the purification of the soul. But be acutely aware, this was not depicted as a form of spiritual punishment or a harsh divine judgment. It was, rather, a natural and inherent process, akin to how pure, flowing water naturally washes away accumulated dirt and debris. When it finally reconnects with its pristine source, when you consciously begin to remember your true self, old, unresolved traumas and deeply embedded emotional wounds rise inevitably to the surface. Their purpose in doing so is not to re-injure you, not to perpetuate past suffering, but rather to present themselves so they can, at long last, be authentically and completely healed. Fears you have carried, often without any conscious understanding of their origin, begin to reveal their true source and purpose. Lies you have unconsciously repeated to yourself throughout your entire life, such as "I'm not good enough," "I have to please everyone," or "I have to protect myself at all costs," slowly but surely lose their binding meaning and power. When you truly perceive who you are, it is as if the brilliant, unwavering light of your essence shines directly into the darkest, most hidden corners of your inner world. And initially, that unfiltered illumination can feel profoundly uncomfortable, even painful, because seeing the unvarnished truth at times hurts. But it is precisely that very pain, that discomfort of confrontation, that ultimately sets you truly free. It is the pain of consciously taking off the mask you've worn for so long. It is the pain of the raw realization that you've been living, perhaps for decades, trapped within a labyrinth of beliefs that were never intrinsically yours. It is the poignant pain of noticing, with stark clarity, that you've been subconsciously running from your authentic self for a very long time. However, Thoth made one thing unequivocally clear: suffering persists only when you resist. When you courageously embrace what arises, when you meet it with acceptance and conscious awareness, it miraculously transforms from pain into profound healing. This, then, is the essence of true purification. It is not about forcefully pushing away or rejecting what you perceive as bad or undesirable. Rather, it is about lovingly integrating that which was denied, that which was previously relegated to the shadows of your subconscious. It is about consciously bringing to light everything you rigorously attempted to hide from yourself, everything you suppressed out of fear or conditioning. And at that pivotal point, something truly revolutionary happens that fundamentally changes everything. The soul, for the very first time in this lifetime, begins to take the lead. The analytical mind, which has always relentlessly set the rules, meticulously dictated the narratives, and meticulously controlled every aspect of your life, gracefully begins to step aside. The ego, that cunning master of control, which meticulously governed your every step with its pervasive fear and incessant desires, finally goes quiet, its clamor subsiding into a gentle murmur. And it is precisely within that newfound, profound silence that true consciousness begins to majestically emerge, unfettered and unbound. However, this is where the real test truly commences, because simply remembering who you are is only the triumphant beginning. Now, you must courageously continue walking. You absolutely cannot halt in the middle of this profound process, for the mind, ever persistent, will attempt to regain its former control. It will desperately try to pull you back into the deceptive comfort zone of old habits, into the familiar yet limiting narratives you have long known. But if you succumb to its pull, if you give in to its persuasive whispers, you will inevitably revert to the state of forgetfulness, of spiritual amnesia, and the soul, once awakened, no longer desires to sleep. It passionately yearns to live, to fully express its inherent truth. And when the soul assumes its rightful place of leadership within your being, a profound and fundamental transformation occurs in your very state of perception. It is no longer the mind laboriously analyzing every detail, desperately trying to control every unfolding event. Now, consciousness simply observes, without interference, without judgment, without the need to manipulate. You enter what Thoth called the waking trance, a state of heightened awareness, where you are fully and completely present to every moment, yet simultaneously distant enough, detached enough, not to be swallowed whole by the chaos and drama that perpetually swirl around you in the external world. In this conscious trance, time itself seems to slow down, stretching and expanding. You feel each passing moment more deeply, more richly, more profoundly. Emotions still arise and exist within you, but they no longer exert an autocratic control over your reactions. They simply move through you, like currents in a river, and you consciously choose what to do with them, how to respond, rather than being swept away. Intuitions arise effortlessly, like clear spring water bubbling to the surface. Decisions become strikingly clearer, almost self-evident. Situations that once threw you into imbalance, that triggered intense anxiety, now seem small, almost inconsequential, compared to the vast, boundless expanse of your authentic being. It's akin to standing calmly in the very eye of a raging storm, observing its fury, but watching it all from within a profound inner silence that simply cannot be shaken. The world continues its incessant spin. People continue their frantic rush. The pervasive noise of everyday life is still undeniably present outside, but inside, deep within your core, there resides an unshakable peace. This peace exists not because the external world has miraculously changed or conformed to your desires, but because you have fundamentally changed the way you perceive it, the way you relate to it. This, dear seeker, is the greatest secret: how to live fully awake, fully conscious, while the vast majority of the world remains in a state of spiritual slumber. Living awake in utter isolation, high atop a mountain, is a relatively simple endeavor. Living awake in the midst of sleeping people, navigating through chaotic, demanding situations, is the real challenge, the true mastery, and Thoth, with his crystalline clarity, made that abundantly clear. The true alchemist does not isolate himself from the world. He does not retreat into a secluded bubble. On the contrary, he walks consciously among the crowd, yet his vibration, his energetic signature, does not blend or succumb to the external noise and lower frequencies. He does not reject everyday life. Instead, he profoundly transforms everyday life through the sheer power of his conscious, awakened presence. And how, you might ask, does that manifest in practical terms? It's certainly not by adopting the lifestyle of a cloistered monk. It's by taking a profound, conscious deep breath in the very middle of chaotic, honking traffic. It's by meticulously maintaining an unshakable inner silence while superficial, meaningless conversations unfold around you. It's by diligently and consciously choosing what information, what energies, what narratives you consume with your eyes, your ears, and your heart, because every single thing that enters your being, every sight, every sound, every thought, every emotion shapes the vibration you actively hold and project. Thoth taught practices that were deceptively simple, yet immensely powerful. Active silence, for instance. This is not a passive silence where you merely isolate yourself and flee from the world's demands. It is a dynamic, engaged silence where, even amidst the most demanding daily tasks, you consciously maintain a part of yourself profoundly awake, observing without judgment, without attachment. It is a state where you do not become lost or overwhelmed by the rush of external demands, but consistently maintain an unwavering inner point of balance and stillness. Another crucial practice was conscious choice. Most people, unfortunately, react automatically to virtually everything that happens to them. They do not consciously choose what to think, what to feel, or how to act. They merely follow automatic, ingrained patterns that have been conditioned throughout their entire lives. But the vibrational alchemist, the awakened being, consciously chooses. He deliberately decides what he will feed his mind, what energies will shape his words, and what intentions will drive his actions. And finally, vigilance over what enters the mind. Because the mind is akin to a vibrant garden. If you do not diligently care for it, if you do not actively tend its soil, weeds will inevitably grow everywhere. Empty information, pervasive collective fears, negative thoughts that you unwittingly absorb without even noticing their insidious infiltration. And when you finally become aware, you find yourself feeling utterly exhausted, consumed by anxiety, and profoundly lost. That is why diligently filtering what you consume, be it media, conversations, or even internal dialogues, is absolutely essential. It is not about living in denial, about ignoring the world's realities. It is about living consciously, with profound discernment. And when these profound practices become natural, seamlessly integrated into your daily existence, something truly extraordinary happens. The remembrance no longer fades. It ceases to be a fleeting, occasional state and becomes the very foundational bedrock of your existence. It is no longer a spiritual peak that occurs sporadically, a momentary glimpse of truth. It is, instead, a constant, unwavering state of presence. The soul ceases to be a fleeting visitor in your life and becomes, undeniably, the home itself. And it is precisely at that pivotal point that the ultimate return occurs, not a return to some past state, but a profound, resonant return home to your true nature. Because your magnificent soul was not created when you were born into this physical realm. It has existed forever, an eternal spark of the divine. It was simply dormant, quietly awaiting its awakening, beneath layer upon dense layer of forgetfulness, accumulated through countless experiences. Thoth, in his profound wisdom, called this ultimate state the return to the source. This is not a place with any physical location, yet it is closer to you, more intimately accessible than any external destination you could ever seek. It is a luminous state where the relentless cycle of seeking finally ends, because you realize, with an undeniable certainty, that what you have been tirelessly searching for your entire life was, in fact, already within you. It always was. And at this moment of profound realization, something fundamental shifts, changing everything. You realize you no longer need to relentlessly chase after other people's approval, their fleeting validation. You no longer need to frantically search for answers outside of yourself, for the answers reside within. You no longer need to beg or plead for love, because you realize, with every fiber of your being, that you already are all of that. The boundless source of peace, unconditional love, and infinite wisdom is eternally contained within you. And every single thing you were desperately seeking externally was merely a beautiful, holographic reflection of what your magnificent soul has always intrinsically known. If you have journeyed with me this far, it is because something powerful and undeniable within you has already begun to remember, and I am deeply eager to connect with those who are vibrating at this profound frequency. Leave a comment below, simply stating, "I remembered who I am." By doing so, we consciously expand this potent energy, creating a collective resonance and vividly demonstrating that more and more souls are courageously awakening in the midst of this slumbering world. And if you feel called to directly support this channel, to become a part of our mission to help disseminate more transformative content like this out into the world, there's a link conveniently located in the pinned comment below. Through that link, you can contribute and actively participate in this profound mission to awaken more and more souls to their inherent truth. And please, do not leave just yet. I have personally selected a special video, a continuation of this profound journey, specifically for you. Click on the video that is now appearing on your screen, and I will meet you there to continue our exploration.